Thanks for joining me today on Think Big with Michael Zellner, powered by Platinum Jewelers. My guest today on episode 106 is Alan Crone. Alan is the founder and CEO of the Crone Law Firm in Memphis. He is a former special counsel to Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland. Alan graduated from what was then Memphis State University in 1987 and then went to the University of Memphis Cecil C. Humphreys School of Law, where he graduated in 1990. I'm also excited to share that Alan is now an author, and his first book is going to be released tomorrow, February 21st. It's called The Law at Work, and he's going to share a little bit more about that book with us today. I'm excited to have him on. Welcome to Think Big, Alan.
Well, thank you, Michael, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Me too, also. You're obviously a very, very successful attorney, Alan. You've worked really hard to get to where you are in life. What are a few of your hobbies outside of work that you enjoy doing?
Well, I enjoy the idea of playing golf. I enjoy being on the course. I enjoy being with friends and family, whoever I might be playing with. But I'm not very good. There's an old line that says, a lawyer who shoots 120 has got no business playing golf. A lawyer who shoots 70 has got no business. So I enjoy playing golf. I enjoy reading. I read just about anything I can get my hands on. Love going to the theater and and just hanging out. Unfortunately, I probably work more than I should, but I really enjoy what I do. So I do a lot of that.
I see where you guys have also done some traveling too. I saw some nice pictures. I believe it was maybe on a cruise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my wife and I went on a cruise with one of Chris Video, which is a consulting firm I use, organized that trip, and it was great. I'd never cruised before.
Wow.
And we were in the Caribbean, and I had a great time. And my family and I were able to go in July. We went to Rome. First time I'd been to Rome, and we spent a week there. And I enjoy that sort of thing too as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been on a cruise ship one time, a big cruise. I went when I was selling Cutco knives and was a manager in the mid-90s, and we went on Royal Caribbean Majesty of the Seas. It was a week-long cruise, and it was just a great time just to get away and have such fun in the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's great about what I like about the experience I had was when you're not in port, it forces you to relax because you're in a confined space. So that was good too.
Absolutely. You went to St. Henry's Preparatory Seminary in Belleville, Illinois. You graduated in 1983. What do you remember most about those years there?
I remember the simplicity of it. The seminary was on about a 40-acre plot of land. Belleville is actually a pretty urbanized suburb of St. Louis. But we were kind of isolated there on campus, and there were, I think, 4 televisions on the property. They were each in a room, and my recollection is there was like one channel in each room, and I never went in there. The early 80s to me, television, I didn't see, and we spent our time talking and playing sports and that sort of thing, as opposed to watching a lot of television or getting into trouble or whatever. And I just remember the simplicity of it. And, that may be a little bit of nostalgia talking, but I wouldn't trade that experience. I really, really enjoyed my 4 years there.
I talk about that all the time, the nostalgia of the 80s. I tell people, you have no idea what it was like to grow up as a teenager in the 80s. Movies were the best, playing outside, going to the arcade, so much fun. Yeah, you had to use a payphone, but you talked to people, you asked people out on a date, either on the phone or in person. There wasn't text messaging. There wasn't the crazy computers. Were just starting to get into schools, if I remember when I was at Ridgeway. But it was just such a more simple time. And, as great as technology is, there's so many negatives to it also. And I think there's so much lost touch with reality, and there's so much more narcissism in today's world compared to when we grew up.
Well, it certainly is more evident, and it has taken a new form. And one of the things that I think is pernicious is this notion if you're scrolling through Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, wherever you're scrolling. I know by saying Facebook, I label myself as an old guy, but all of the images are so. It looks like everybody in the world is having a great time but you.
Right.
And you really got to remember that you're seeing everybody at their best, and sometimes at their contrived best, and that's not really the that's not really the pattern that your life is going to take or should take, and it's not really the pattern that their life is taking.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's so easy to get attention now. And some people, I think, are addicted to attention.
Yeah.
And, I may be one of those people too. I mean, we all want to be noticed,
Sure.
Right? And so social media really does kind of highlight that sometimes in good ways, but most often, I think, in bad ways.
Yeah. And very few people have an easy time being really vulnerable on social media. They, just like you said, they want to put their best foot forward, and you don't really get to see the real side of a lot of people. And when people are vulnerable, I appreciate that so much more.
Yes. And I think in terms of business, being vulnerable as a business is very valuable.
Great.
Because how you treat people when you're down or when they're down really is the measure of your character. And I think when I was in a restaurant the other day, and the waitress came up to us. We've been sitting there after we ordered for 45 minutes, and she said, "I just want to tell you, I completely forgot to put your order in, and I'm going to go do that right now. I'm so sorry." And we were frustrated, obviously.
Sure.
We weren't happy about it. But rather than coming and saying they dropped your food or, somebody else screwed up, she owned it. And, that was so disarming that, I ended up giving her a pretty big tip because, I always tip big because I know that a lot of people don't tip. And I know that waiters and waitresses really depend on that. But I just felt like the honesty should be rewarded, and that doesn't happen if you're not vulnerable.
Absolutely, and that shows that person's character, which is huge.
Yes.
After you went to seminary school, you decided to go to college, and then you went to law school. Was law school something that you always wanted to do? Because obviously it's a little bit different from where you began.
Well, yes and no. Depends on how many priests you know and how many lawyers you know. There are lots of similarities. I remember as a young person driving by the law school and on Central, when it was on Central there,
Yeah.
and thinking, that may be something I'd be interested in doing. And I'd seen, I'm going to date myself again, I'd seen Perry Mason and Witness for the Prosecution and those kind of movies. And I have kind of, as you know, Michael, I have a outsized personality, and I enjoy the drama. I was a theater major for a while. And so yeah, I had always in the back of my mind, I had considered that as a potential career. I can't say that I thought about it and analyzed it for very long. I really kind of fell backwards into it. My major in college was political science, and so there was an advanced degree in my future. Yeah. So just a matter of which one. And I'll tell you, I loved law school. I love the intellectual challenge of it. I love the law there are lots of puzzles you have to figure out. There's lots of strategy involved, and there's lots of drama involved. And I I like all of those things. So I think I got real lucky in my choice of career. And I really do enjoy what I do. And I enjoy the business side of the profession. And that's something that a lot of lawyers just aren't exposed to, either because they've never really thought about it, or they work for a large firm and there are other administrators who take care of that sort of thing. But I find the business of law fascinating, because it's a profession. I mean, we raise our hand and put our other hand on a Bible and make oaths about how we're going to conduct ourselves. Retail people don't take an oath. Lots of professional people don't take an oath. But so I think that makes lawyering not better or worse, but just different when it comes to the business side of it, because you owe a responsibility to that. I owe a responsibility to that oath I took, and that eliminates a lot of activity or conduct that might be questionable but not illegal in business circumstances. But in a profession like my profession, it eliminates a lot of those kinds of conduct. So the business side of the legal profession, I think, is very interesting.
And you see the oath on TV all the time, obviously, people going up to testify, they have to put their hand on the Bible, raise their hand. And I think a lot of people maybe take that for granted. Obviously, you don't take that for granted. That oath was important to you.
It is important. And the oath that everybody takes is important, because it's I always say that the legal profession is kind of, and our justice system is kind of mired in the 19th century. And there are lots of things about the 19th century to abhor, oppression and slavery and all of those things.
Sure.
But, in the 19th century and before, if a person swore on a Bible, in other words, took an oath before God, then the presumption was that you would not imperil your mortal soul to lie in court.
Right.
And we really rely on that to this day, I think sometimes to our detriment, because a lot of people don't value their mortal soul. And, that's a religious issue. But when you think about it, if that's all that stands between a person and perjury, for a lot of people, that's not as big of a burden as it used to be. But, irrespective of that, you stand up and you swear in public, I'm going to conduct myself. I'm going to defend the Constitution. I'm going to be courteous and civil to the other members of the court. I'm going to always be honest. I'm never going to mislead anyone. All the things that lawyers swear to when they're sworn in to be a lawyer. If I depart from that, either negligently or intentionally, then that damages my good word. And at the end of the day, that's really all I have. Is I hope people say about me, hey, Crone may be wrong, but if he says something to you, if he says he will do something, he will do it. Or if he says he won't do something, he won't do it. And so it all goes back to that oath. I don't want to make a liar out of my 23-year-old self when I took that oath. And once a year, I'm licensed in Tennessee, Arkansas, and Missouri, and their oaths are all pretty similar. And once a year, I take it out and I reread it and recommit myself to it, because it's just a good reminder of what I'm supposed to be about. Now, do I live up to that? No, I don't want anybody to think that I think that I'm perfect. I don't. It's you've got to every day. You've got to. It's a new day, and you've got to make decisions on. How am I going to live my life today? And hopefully that oath and other oaths that I've taken form those choices.
Alan, you and the Crone Law Firm are described as, quote, an employment law team committed to helping employees, executives, and entrepreneurs resolve workplace disputes. A master at devising winning strategies and innovative tactics, Alan is known for achieving the best outcome for clients, unquote. What strategies do you use to try to ensure, successful outcomes for your clients?
Well, it really depends on the client and the situation. I mean, some situations lend themselves to diplomacy, and we don't want to be. There's the old adage that if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and so we don't want to be a situation where every dispute looks like a lawsuit, and so we're just going to file a lawsuit. Sometimes you can sit down and you can talk those things through and you can solve the problem. I'd rather solve the problem than win a lawsuit. And because lawsuits, look, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, goody, I get to go hire me a lawyer today. No one wants to do that. But when you need a lawyer, hopefully you go hire one, and hopefully that lawyer helps you solve whatever problem you have. And I think that's what we keep our eye on is what is the shortest distance between where we are right now and the solution to that problem, and what's the best course we can chart to get there. Sometimes just the threat of a lawsuit maybe is what's needed. Sometimes to solve the problem, you gotta take the gloves off, and you realize that the other side's not going to be cooperative, and you're going to have to do it the hard way. So you do that. But I think that's, every situation we come in contact with, that's what we first ask is, what's the problem? What's the solution? In other words, what does the client really want? And what can we do to get them there as quickly as possible? Because legal situations take too long to resolve in the best of circumstances. And if you don't have a really, really good plan, that can make them last even longer, unfortunately.
You guys have, lots of testimonials from satisfied clients. A business owner client testimonial said, quote, I adore Alan and I adore all those attorneys over at the Crone Law Firm. They're so nice and they just take care of business. I love them, unquote. Sometimes people perceive niceness as weakness. However, I've always believed it makes you stronger and shows that you care about people. Do you feel that's one of the big reasons why that your firm has been so successful?
Well, I do. We work on that every day, and it's not just about being nice or being kind, although we try to be those things. Sure. But what we really try to do, and I think what a lot of people respond favorably to, is sometimes we're not kind. Sometimes we tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Right.
And I think, again, being straight and doing it in a way, as you say, where we demonstrate the fact that we do care about our clients and that we are client-centered. And, those times when I lose sight of my client is when I get in trouble. And what I mean by that is, you can have a particular case that, maybe it's very lucrative, and you're, if I start looking at the value of the case and the fee I might get and make that central to my actions, that's going to come perhaps at the detriment of the client. Client's going to sense that they're not my number one priority. Or if it's sometimes there are cases or there's situations that are just fun. I'm looking forward to a cross-examination, or I'm looking forward to a trial, or this is going to be fun because I've got these documents that contradict their star witness, and right, I can really do something. Well, that's really kind of self-centered of me. And sometimes I can be tempted to, to avoid settlement in order to have that great professional moment. And that's, again, taking my eyes off of the client as the center. And I have found that when I focus on the client and what's best for him or her, and really listen to them and spend time with them, the outcome is better. The client is more satisfied. The financial health of my firm is better. Everything is better when I do that. And I'm not going to tell you that every time I lose that focus, bad things happen, but I would say almost exclusively when bad things happen, and God forbid it happens, and thank the Lord, I don't have a lot of bad things happen to my practice and my clients. But it's because I've lost sight of the client as the focus. And, most clients assume that you hire a lawyer and they know what they're doing, and they're doing the right legal things and all of that. Where people really appreciate with lawyers is when lawyers take time with them, when they explain what's going on, and when they go out of their way to be empathetic, compassionate, and human with folks. And it's hard. It's like anything else. A good lawyer is trying to juggle half a dozen or more situations at any one time, and you can get distracted, you can get busy, and all those sorts of things. But you still have to make time for the human element. And when you do, I think because it's so rare, I think people gravitate towards it.
Are you shopping for a new watch, an engagement ring, any kind of jewelry at all? What's up, Memphis? This is Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Grizzlies, encouraging you all to shop where I shop, Platinum Jewelers here in Memphis. Platinum Jewelers has a big selection of earrings, stockable rings, luxury watches, necklaces, bracelets, really whatever you need. 9387 Poplar next to Fresh Market in Germantown. So if you need anything jewelry related, go to my spot, Platinum Jewelers.
In 2021, Forbes came out with an article called How CRISP Became the Secret Weapon for Law Firms, a case study with Michael Mogill. You just mentioned CRISP, I believe the cruise that you said you went on this past December, you posted, quote, "CRISP changed my firm for the better. Check them out," unquote. Tell us a little bit about, what CRISP is and how it's been able to help your firm.
Well, that's a great success story. Michael Mogill started CRISP, and it was a video company, and he focused just on shooting videos for law firms. And if you've seen a CRISP video for one law firm, and then you see another one, they have a very distinctive style, and they really help connect with potential clients on an emotional level, because the videos aren't the normal, hire me, hammer them, that kind of thing. It really gets into the humanity of it. Well, he evolved from just doing the videos to doing coaching. And there are lots of really good, business coaches out there for law firms. But CRISP is really good. And I'll tell you, I don't think I would have made it through the pandemic without CRISP and the friends that I've made through CRISP, because I think I would have panicked and run away rather than run toward marketing and business development during the pandemic. But they really help lawyers like me perfect the business of the legal profession and run your company like a business. And since I've been with them, I've scaled up, doubled my revenue several times, and doubled my ability to better serve my clients, which is probably the most important thing.
Does Morgan & Morgan use CRISP? Because they seem like the commercials they have probably hit on that same type of, that emotional part.
I don't think so. I know John Morgan and Michael Mogill are close. John has been on Michael's podcast and has attended a number of his events, which is how I met John Morgan and Alex Shinara and several other people. But, John Morgan is a guy who decided that he set out to build the biggest law firm in the world, about 20 years ago. And he built it, and he understands the business of law as well as anybody.
Right. You went to chrissummit.com Game Changers in Atlanta this past November, which is, I believe, the number one law firm growth conference on earth. What was it like for you to attend that meeting?
Well, I've been to all of the growth conferences starting in 2018, and this was one where Michael had pointed to a fence, and he wanted to have 5,000 folks at this thing that was in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta,
Wow.
which is a football stadium.
Yeah.
And he did it. And I was one of the reasons I went, frankly, is I wanted to see if he pulled it off, and he did. And it was funny. One of the speakers was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Schwarzenegger walks out and sits down, and he's looking around, and he says, "Okay, am I in an empty football stadium or an incredibly full auditorium?" Because he could tell there was a ton of people there, but there was not 80,000 people or whatever that place sits. So
Sure.
it was kind of a surreal experience. We were on the field. They had the turf down, and it was 3 or 4 days. I mean, if you get a chance to go to one of those things, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger and David Goggins and gosh, I'm blanking on Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, and a lot of legal folks that you might not know if you're not in the legal profession. Gary V. A couple of years ago, every couple of years he has Gary V. and Malcolm Glidewell, who is just a tremendous speaker. So it's a real good time. Another reason why I enjoy that is I've met lawyers literally from all over the country who do all kinds of different things, and it's been a great networking opportunity for me. And I think if I could go back in a time machine and talk to my 23-year-old self, I would tell him, look, because when I was that age, I thought networking was kind of a dodge. I thought it was a gimmick. A kind of a transactional gimmick. I'm going to go network, and I'm going to help you, and you're going to help me, and I'm going to move on. And I really didn't understand it, but it's all about building relationships, Michael, as you know.
Absolutely.
And I really wish I had taken better advantage of that as I was coming up, because when you set out to build a business based on long-term relationships rather than transactional relationships, it's such a much more solid foundation. And I've always done that, whether it's locally through our local bar association or through civic boards and commissions, or the American Bar Association, the National Employment Lawyers Association, those kinds of national groups. It's amazing. Every few months, someone will call me and say, hey, I met you at this meeting. I've got a case that's in Memphis. Will can I refer it to you, or you want to work on it together? And I've been involved in a lot of really stimulating and satisfying professional engagements, because I've just, sat down and, sometimes you just sit down and talk and have a 20-minute conversation with somebody, and then 4 or 5 years later, your phone rings and it's that person wanting to give you an opportunity.
Very cool. Speaking of Arnold, the Terminator, Arnold's a big guy, and hopefully this can be seen. I mean, look at that. You almost tower over him. That's pretty freaking awesome. That was cool. What a great picture.
It is a good picture.
How was that like to take a picture and stand next to that guy, and you were just like, basically, you're sort of looking down at him?
Well, it was funny in that you were told, okay, you go up, you stand there, you don't touch him, you don't shake it, you don't offer his hand, you don't say anything. It's one of those,
Sure.
kind of things. Although I noticed that he tended to shake hands and hug the younger female lawyers more than me. I don't know why that was, but
Right.
no, but he gave a great speech, and he was very nice to, he stood there for probably don't know, 2,000 people to take a
Wow.
photo. I mean, it was a huge
Wow.
line. It went
Yeah.
like that. But he was very gracious, and I'm glad he was able to attend.
Were you one of the few people that were taller than him?
Yeah, there weren't many.
Okay. I was about to say, I bet there weren't. That had to be pretty cool, though, just to have that picture and to see you just sort of scouring over him a little bit. I thought that was very entertaining. I like that picture. Speaking of top law firms, the Crone Law Firm was recently recognized as one of the best law firms by U.S. News and World Report for 2023. It's so awesome, Alan. Congratulations. How did that come about?
Well, they thank you very much, Michael. That's one of my favorite credentials that we've gotten. There's a vetting process. You have to be nominated, and before they even contact you, they check you out. They talk to other people in the profession, and I think some of your clients and that sort of thing. And then they sent us a questionnaire to fill out, which we did. And I'm not sure exactly from there what their selection criteria is, but it is fairly rare that for law firms to qualify. And like I say, I'm really proud of that, because it's not just something that you just write somebody a check and they give you an award. And there are lots of those out there in all professions, but it's a tough vetting process, and we were very humbled and pleased to be able to display that badge and receive that honor. And it's not for me. It really is because of the great team we have here, the great lawyers we have, great staff that we have, and I'm glad that U.S. News and World Report recognized this.
Well, that's awesome that you got that. You're right. There's so many awards that are out there that you're right. You could just write a check for, and you get your name in there. So you need to be recognized. That shows obviously the quality of your firm. So once again, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Tell us what the Crone Capital Club is all about. Who's it for, and what you guys do at those meetings.
All right. Well, it's by invitation only. It's some of our clients and referral sources and folks in the Memphis community, and we meet 2 or 3 times a year at the Capitol Grill in East Memphis, and we'll have a speaker. Our first speaker was Mayor Strickland. Then Jason Wexler spoke, and we've got another one coming up that I can't quite announce yet because we don't have the date, but it'll be someone of that stature. Nice. And it's an opportunity for, I meet a lot of people, and so I try to bring folks into that meeting that may be able to do business with one another, or just being that it's a big deal for them to be in the same room as the mayor or the general manager of the Grizzlies, and maybe to help elevate them. And it's been great for us, and I've heard anecdotally of situations where people have done deals after one of those meetings, and to me that's what it's all about, is trying to put people together and provide opportunity.
What do you see as the biggest challenge facing the legal system today? Technology
and the growth of technology, and how to keep the human element in a profession where a chatbot just passed the bar of all 50 states with AI intelligence, and passed the medical boards of all 50 states. And it's a tremendous tool, but how do you keep the human element in decision making and advocacy when there's so much automation? I think and there's a lot that flows from that, but I think that's the biggest challenge. I don't think it's a problem, but I do think it's a challenge to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, and artificial intelligence, like I typed in, tell me about the Think Big with Michael Zellner podcast, and in like 2 seconds, it gave me this like huge paragraph. I'm like, unbelievable. I mean, like, once again, technology is much good as technology. There's also the opposite side too, and it can be a little bit scary.
Yes. But, I'm sure that the cotton gin was scary. I'm sure that the wheel and the printing press were scary.
Yeah.
And, we'll figure it out, hopefully.
Absolutely. You said, quote, the more complex the case, the more interesting. I love unraveling facts and figuring out what's really going on to come up with a surefire strategy for a solution, unquote. What do you consider your greatest accomplishment as a lawyer?
Well, that's easy. I had a case about 20 years ago that involved pharmacists, optometrists, and veterinarians who were the victims of a Ponzi scheme. And the plan that the wrongdoers and their bankers had decided was they were going to extricate themselves from this on the backs of the pharmacists, doctors, and veterinarians and optometrists. And long story short, over the course of about 5 or 6 years, not only did we keep that from happening to our clients, but we got them their money back by and large on that deal. And that was it was a great professional accomplishment, and it was also a great personal accomplishment because for several years after that, people who weren't represented by our group, and there are about 4 or 5 different groups represented by 4 or 5 different law firms that were successful. We represented, I think, about 750 clients out of 13,000. And the other 13,000, 12,000 some odd didn't get involved. And they ended up having to pay in perpetuity what our clients were able to get out of. And so I really felt like we did a great job with that case.
Another testimonial I read from a client who was wrongfully terminated. It said, quote, I walked out of his office that day, met my wife for lunch, and was like, we're fighting back. We're fighting back, unquote. The confidence that you instill in your clients to have that kind of reaction after meeting with you must mean everything to you and your firm. I mean, knowing that they firmly believe that you're going to be able to help them and take care of them, and must make everything that you go through and you've gone through for your whole career, it must make it worth it.
Well, it certainly is gratifying, but what it really is, what that fella was reacting to was, our approach to explain what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And I think that is as much what you're hearing there as anything else, is that when he left, he understood that he was going to be fighting back, and he understood how he was going to do it. And I think when you've been the victim of age discrimination or race or sex discrimination, or just you've gotten screwed out of some money that somebody owed you, to be able to take that power back and fight back and not look for a windfall, but look for what you're owed, and have the ability to do that and feel in control to a certain extent. I think that, that rehabilitates the person, and it makes them feel like a human being again.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we try to do early on.
Quote, great day at the Crone Law Firm PLC St. Louis office with Edward Rolls, St. Louis managing attorney, to discuss bringing justice to the 314, unquote. You mentioned this a little bit earlier. You opened up your St. Louis office, I believe, in mid 2021. Why did you decide to expand your practice, and what made you choose St. Louis?
Well, as you mentioned early in the program, I went to the seminary in the St. Louis area. So I know St. Louis really well. I've got a lot of contacts up there. I've done a lot of business up there. And so, we felt like it basically, in terms of representing executives, we have a large market share here in Memphis. And so we wanted to increase the market, and St. Louis seemed like a natural place for me to go because of my prior relationship there. And then over the course of working that setup, I met Edward Rouse, who's our managing attorney up there, and he shares a lot of our values and goals. And so it's just kind of built on itself. I was up there very recently. We're talking about adding some folks to that office. So so far it's been a great innovation, and we'll hopefully we can continue to have success up there.
That's wonderful. Deacons help priests in their parish duties by providing spiritual guidance in the community. They visit sick people. They act as, a servant of God. You're a deacon at Immaculate Conception here in Memphis, and very involved with the Catholic Church. You give a lot of yourself to help others who really need it, and with work and outside of work too. In the Jewish religion, we would call you a mensch, Alan, which you probably know what that word means.
I do, and I've been called that a couple of times.
Yeah, someone who has integrity, morality, dignity, and has a sense of what is right and responsible. How do you enjoy being a deacon and being so involved with your church?
Well, I it's my honor and pleasure to serve, and it's hard to talk about it because I don't want to sound. People say, "Oh, well, you must be a super Catholic because you're a deacon," and I said, "No, I'm a deacon because I want to be a super Catholic, and I know I need the grace of service to help me get there." And I think the bigger the sinner, the more you have to serve, and so I because of kind of who I am, and so a lot of my service is to the bishop and to the church administration, and when a pastor needs some liaisoning with the city for whatever reason, they call me to help do that. And then I really enjoy preaching. And since I don't get to argue in front of juries as much as I'd like anymore, since I became CEO of the firm, it's a great way to communicate with folks and hopefully give them a different perspective on salvation and spirituality. And that, and I just hope it helps people down the road. People, I'm a trial lawyer, so it's no surprise that I can give a speech, and I don't consider it to be all that earth shattering. And it's a gift. It's a gift from God. I really don't know sometimes how I do it, but I'm happy if it helps people.
Wonderful. And you also have a podcast called Ask Alan, the podcast. Tell us a little bit about it and how and why you got started with your podcast.
Well, in 2019, I had been contemplating doing a podcast, and that's one thing that some friends of mine and Chris were encouraging me to do. And at that time in 2019, it was kind of mysterious. How do you do it? How do you get it uploaded? All that sort of thing. Well, in 2020, we all discovered Zoom and all the other Microsoft Teams and all the other platforms. And so that technological barrier, if you will, just kind of disintegrated. During the pandemic, during the lockdown, I was doing these bulletins that we called Ask Alan. And they essentially was trying to communicate to folks, the PPP situation, what the unemployment situation, benefits were going to be, debunking myths about the lockdown and, health department directives and all of that. We did, at one point, we were doing one a day, and they were very well received. And so as we got to the end of that, and you could kind of see that in July, it was going to loosen up. Sure. I wanted to keep that momentum going. And so I started talking with some people about, all right, how can we keep these bulletins going and the visibility going? And that's when we resurrected the idea of a podcast, and then just started doing them. And with the Zoom technology, and it was just so easy to set up. And it was also still in that same time frame, late 2020 and into 2021, when even though there were lots of restrictions being lifted, people still didn't want to go to lunch or go out in public and do a lot of things. So it was a great way to stay connected with not just the audience, but also with a lot of the people that I had on the show. And so it's been good, and I think it's been well received.
That's awesome. And I once again appreciate you having me on the show last week. That was a lot of fun having, and to reciprocate here, it's been great. I love doing this. Quote, work conflict can be frightening because employers have more power than their employees. When problems arise with no apparent solution, it can feel like you, the employee, have no leverage in resolving them, unquote. That is on the back of your new book coming out tomorrow, The Law at Work, a legal playbook, there we go, for executives and professionals. Tell us about your brand new book and what was your main purpose in writing it? Well,
the book is, I wrote it in such a way that hopefully is approachable by non-lawyers. If I had written it for lawyers, it'd be 3 times this size.
Right.
But I wanted to kind of demystify a lot of the misconceptions about the workplace and legal matters, but also to talk about things that people may not understand, like the employment at will doctrine, and which is basically the doctrine that says anybody can be fired at any time for any reason, and then you overlay all of the exceptions to that, and it can be tough to maneuver. Plus, there are lots of situations where there are legal ramifications for what you do. If you sign a non-compete agreement, or if you are given exposure to trade secrets or confidential information or confidential or proprietary documents, we talk about, what are some traps and pitfalls that you can fall into if you're not careful, and how you should approach some of those things and the questions that you should be asking. No book like this can answer all the questions, but I think what it does is allows people to identify some of those issues and either go see a lawyer about it or figure it out themselves once they understand the parameters.
How long did it take you to write the book?
About a year. In fact, I started. I was talking to somebody today that it was in February of last year that I started, and I kept at it, and it took me, I guess, in August I finished the first draft, and then from August to October went through the editing process and that sort of thing, and then answered about 5,000 questions about what font, what color, was it going to be hardback? I mean, that was harder than writing the book, was figuring out all of those things. So yeah, the whole process, stem to stern, was about a year.
I bet that was probably actually a lot of fun for you to be able to put all that in writing.
It was, and lots of stories in here. We've changed names and
Sure.
circumstances for confidentiality purposes, but the concepts are the same. And I think people, if they read a story and they see something of their own situation, that's a lot more interesting than reading a bunch of legalese about what the law is and isn't.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about mom and dad, Jim and Dorothy. How long have they been married?
Oh, goodness. They've been married 58 or 59 years.
Wow.
And my dad is a pharmacist. My mom is a school teacher. And they were just the greatest parents you could ask for. My mom, as I said, she was an art teacher. And therefore, my sister and I, we were introduced to the arts at a very early stage. I remember Sunday afternoons going to the symphony, and we would go to plays and art galleries. And I knew who Shakespeare was when I was 5 years old because my mother talked about Shakespeare. And so that really helped form, me as, kind of as well-rounded. And then my dad was one of the hardest working guys I ever knew. He worked 6 days a week, didn't work on Sunday, but worked 6 days a week, had his own pharmacy. And, looking back on it, I really am impressed with his work ethic. And I think that he was my role model in terms of how you're supposed to TCB. And so they're retired now, and they live in Bartlett, and we love having them close by, and they're doing great.
That's awesome. We talked about your dad, Jim, and my dad, Stanley, when you had me as a guest on your podcast. I've never heard my dad talk bad about people, but also my dad, if he really liked somebody, he did tell me about them. And he always had such great things to say about your dad and the pharmacy in West Memphis, and always really enjoyed visiting with him.
Yeah. And your dad was my podiatrist for a long time. And I'll give a shout out for podiatry. I don't understand why more people don't go and have their feet worked on. When you come out of a podiatrist's office, I always feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening to this and you've never been to a podiatrist, go to a podiatrist. You'll thank me. You'll thank me.
I didn't like school enough, and certainly didn't want to work on sticky feet to go that route. But you're right. When you go to a podiatrist and you get done, they work on your feet and do all the things to it. You feel so much better.
Yes.
It's such a great profession. Speaking of wives, your wife is Allison. How did you guys meet?
We met while I was still in the seminary. We did musical theater in Crittenden County, Arkansas during the summers. And we did 4 or 5 plays together. And then when I was at Memphis State one summer in 1985, we did the musical Grease. I was the assistant director. She was Sandy, and we started dating over the course of that summer. And as they say, the rest is history. We both ended up going to Memphis State Law School after we graduated from college. And, one of those things where I really very blessed, very lucky to have such a great wife. She's always been very supportive of me. I'm probably not nearly, I probably haven't reciprocated nearly enough for her. But we have 3 kids, and I always say they take after their mama. They're great.
And one of those things is talking about how there are no coincidences. The fact that you guys, did that together in 1985 and you met, fate took its history and took course right there. That's awesome. What a great story. And you spoke about your kids. You have a beautiful daughter, Maggie, who I believe just turned 22 this past December. And also in December, Charlie graduated from UT Chattanooga. And James graduated from college in 2018. He interned in Congress. He's now marketing director in your law firm, and he's married to an Allison himself, and they have a dog named Archie. Sounds
Yes.
like you have a really incredible family, Alan. I'm sure that both you and your wife, Allison, must be really proud of all of them. Tell us just a little bit more about the kids.
Well, we certainly are very proud of them. James is our marketing director here, and he does just a fabulous job. I get all kinds of compliments on our stuff, and I always say, "Hey, James does it." Maggie, my youngest, is she wants to be a comedian and be a comedy writer, and she's going to graduate from college this spring and hopefully start out on that great adventure. And Charlie's a salesman here in town. His girlfriend lives in San Antonio, Texas, and she's looking at going to med school. And so we'll see where Charlie is in a couple of years. But he's a great salesman. Just so proud of all of them. And as I say, they're great, and that's because they take after their mama.
I bet they take after you too. You're being humble there, so that's wonderful. Great kids. What are the most important lessons that you've learned in your life?
Oh, I think the first and most important lesson I've learned is that it's not about me. And people who know me will know that I do not have a small ego, and I am not shy or not confident. But it's not about me, and it's about everybody else. And if I can keep that mindset, I'll have a great day, have a great life. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think, doing the basic things well is really what's most important. Blocking, tackling, coming to the office every day, working hard every day, keeping cases moving, keeping my business moving, not trying to do everything in one day, but to just take care of business. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that and try to hit home runs. And hitting a home run is not a bad thing, but if you were to come up to bat every single time and hit a single, you'd be the greatest baseball player of all time. Absolutely. So that's the other thing. And then the third one is, it's all about family and friends and faith, and everything else we do should support those things. And as we said, I love my family. I've been blessed with a great family, great in-laws on all sides, and family perfect. No, we've had problems, but we've stayed together and support one another, and I think that's important. And we've got a lot of good friends, and then the last thing I'll say is life's about experiences, and the more you can get out of your comfort zone and have different experiences, it's just going to give a lot more flavor to your life.
How can people find your firm online, and how can we find your new book that's coming out tomorrow?
Well, it's going to be on my website. It's at Amazon. My website is CroneLawFirmPLC.com. And I always say, just Google me. If you Google Alan Crone, if you Google the Crone Law Firm, you'll find a lot of information on us.
Awesome. One of the great things about social media is that you can see and follow people, their lives and their careers that you might not have otherwise been able to do, without it. I've watched a lot of things that you've done online over the years, and you're definitely somebody that you do make a difference in people's lives. And I think you're the kind of guy, you make people feel better about themselves, and that says a ton about your character. You do that with your church, your family, your law firm, and your clients, and that just says a lot about you, Alan. I really
you're awful nice.
I appreciate you coming on today.
And I'll tell you, you're right. If anything I do makes somebody feel better about themselves, I'll drop the mic. I'm done. That's great. I hope that's the case. I really do. That would be awesome.
Once again, I'd like to thank sponsor of Think Big with Michael Zellner, which is Platinum Jewelers here in Memphis. And don't forget, once again, Alan's new book, The Law at Work, is coming out tomorrow. So please go buy it, check it out. And I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Alan.